Good afternoon. I said good afternoon. Thank you very much. I could see an amazing interaction just now happened. And I was actually in the tea break, I eavesdropped a few conversation. And I could hear somebody was talking about saying that, there is a lot of opportunity for me to really grow big. But where is the people? Where exactly can I get the right kind of people? I'm sure that's the question that all of you have. Yes or no? Hello? Yes. That's $1 million question. So what I would like to probably spend some time with you to talk about the current scenario, the challenges for recruiting the right kind of people and retaining them. I would like to talk to you about a story. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this country called Qatar, right? Doha, which is going to host the World Cup in 2022. Now, in this particular country, there are a lot of companies called Q companies, which is called Qatar Petroleum, Qatar Gas, Qatar Chemical, things of that sort. Now, there's one major company called Qatar Petroleum, which employs close to about 12,000 employees. So, last 2 years, they are on the verge of firing people, okay? And in the year 2017 in January, they fired close to about 2,000 people, 80% of them are from India, and a majority of them basically from Kerala. So, if you look at this particular what this company was actually going to save out of this thing is that there's a leading consulting company, one of the top consulting company from the US. They've recommended them that if you fire these 2,000 people, your company can save $3 billion in 2 years' time. Is that a big money? Is that a big money? Okay. A couple of months later, I had an opportunity to speak to one of the sheikhs who's a HR director of the Qatar Petroleum Company. And I asked him, sir, what exactly did you do? And what did he say is, he said, we didn't fire people, we right-sized them. You got it? We didn't downsize it. We just right-sized it. Okay? The happy news is that Qatar Petroleum has started hiring people from last month onwards. The company was having a lot of fat, and they wanted to just shed the fat. For example, if you're an ordinary level employee in Qatar Petroleum, you get a beautiful villa sponsored by the company. 3 children of yours will go to a British curriculum school. So that means, like this, there are so many facilities given to those employees, and which is going to actually cost a huge amount of money for the company. So what the company did actually, downsized in our term, but for their term, it's called right sizing. So the point that I'm actually trying to talk to you right now is not about downsizing or right sizing. These are all the terminology for the corporate companies. For us, what exactly is talent management and what you and I as an SME, entrepreneurial driven organization will face through. So if you look at the talent management aspect, talent management is all about identifying the right kind of people, deploying them in the right kind of role, and developing them and train them on what are the things that need to be done, and ensure that they don't leave your company and stay with you for a very long time. So if you really look at it, what exactly the talent management does for an organization, it's actually a feeder, and it gives you a succession planning. That means there is a lot of us, we have a problem. You depend on one particular guy, that guy is extremely good and he performs well, and one fine day he leaves you and that particular chair becomes vacant. And we don't really plan for the succession of the employee. We are very comfortable with somebody is doing really good, and then you leave them. So the last thing is, it can probably set a tone for somebody to come into your company. They know exactly where they are today, where they will be 3 years down the line, where they'll be 5 years down the line. So what exactly the challenges of an SME today? The challenges are very, very high. The reason is that as an entrepreneur, we wear multiple hats. Agree with me? So we are the salesperson, we are the financial guy, we are the HR guy. We do all kind of problems. So we get into a lot of things. So that is the role an entrepreneur actually does. Now, if you really look at it, the real entrepreneur, the guy who starts it, it's called the founder's mindset or the founder's mentality. A real founder is an innovator. He gets things done. You've seen so many speakers talking in the morning. They all come up with some interesting idea and they wanted to get it done, no matter what. They will strive to make it happen. They're not going to give up. So in this founder's mentality, how are they going to stick on for a very long time? So in a positive sense, it's good. The negative sense, we too much depend on ourselves. We don't really develop people on the front. Now there was a data, there's a study from the SME HR landscape, which was conducted last year, and there's some very interesting data. All the SMEs, there was close to about 50,000 SMEs in India, an SME which they define it as a person of number of employees working from 50 people to 5,000 people. In this data that they've gathered, three major challenges for SMEs today. The three major challenges are put into two different categories. I will explain to you what it is. The number one challenges for all the SMEs today is that how do you retain employee? The employee turnover. People come and people leave. People come and people leave. So what is that we can do about it? That's the number one challenge. The number two challenge is how can you really engage them? How can you really motivate them? How can you make sure that they feel happy to come and work with your organization? The third most interesting challenges that the SME faces today is that how do we develop the second line? How do we develop the second line leaders? In this particular data, there are two different things I've mentioned here. One is, of all the data, you can look at the number for yourself. There are two categories. One is, there is an urgent need to be addressed. And the second category is, companies are not ready for it. So if you look at it, I'm sure most of you sitting here, including me in our own company, we are ready, but there's a series of urgency that we need to take upon it. So in this particular context, what is that we need to do? Where exactly are those employees going to come and work with us? Now, if you look at the millennials that we're talking about, and this generation is called the Maggie generation. Why it is called Maggie generation? Because they want solutions in 2 minutes, right? They want everything to happen fast, and thanks to all these forums like Satish is actually developing a lot of startup people. And if an youngster today doesn't talk about a word called startup, the parents get worried. They probably take it to some psychiatrist and try and figure out, is there any problem with my young guy? Because he's not talking about startup. So this is the challenge that we are facing, number one. The number two challenge is, this particular generation is a mute generation. Do you agree with me? You try to speak to this fellow, call them up and they will not respond to you, he will not call you. But if you text him, he will immediately reply to you. Because they don't want to talk to you. So that's the kind of generation that we have. So how do we really handle this particular generation? And last week, Sunday Times, there was a supplement, and it said it's a mute generation and they're not talkative, they are textative. They're not talkative, they are textative. So this is the kind of people who are going to come to us. On the positive side, if you really look at it, the generation that we are having right now, this generation, this is the generation, these are the people that we will come and work with us. Agree with me? People who were born about 1995, 2000. This is the only people that we have as a workforce. How do we really manage them is a question. Now the question here is, what exactly these people are looking at? These youngsters are concerned about two things. One, of course, is power. They want their decision. They don't want to work like the olden days. I'm sure I'm from Coimbatore, all of us are from Coimbatore, most of you are from Coimbatore. I used to work for a company called Clothesline Media, which is into textile. So I happened to go to all those textile companies in and around the southern part of the world. So what actually happens is, in the maybe 20 years down the line, madam will be knowing, the owner of a textile mill, and if anybody wants to get into the cabin of an MD, they will remove the slipper outside and then go and stand like this. But today, the bosses stand like that because they don't have people to go there. So today's generation want power and they definitely want influence. Because they have, as the previous speaker was talking about, they want recognition. You post something and somebody has to like it, or somebody has to show this. If there's nobody showing like this, they get demotivated. So they want power and they want influence. Now, what actually happened was, we as an entrepreneur, we need to identify these great people in our organization. I want to show you this small story about this gentleman called John Lesnar. Some of you in the IT, you know about him. He is the guy who founded this company called Pixar. Pixar is a company who does animation. He was actually working for Disney, Disney in the software division in the US. Now what actually happened, before 90s, the early 90s when tech was coming up and people were talking about movie production, technology going into the movie CG, computer graphics were into the movie picture production and things of that sort. And this gentleman went to the Disney's top management and said, I have an idea. How about having a movie exclusively in animation? The founders of all the Disney, the top management said, no, I don't think it's going to work out, and don't come up with all these crazy ideas. And he was fired. He was fired. He went around, he started this company, and he came up with a beautiful full-time movie, 100% fully done movie called Toy Story. Some of you know about this. And this record broken multiple times, and Disney want this guy back. Disney want this guy back. So what did he do? He acquired this company by paying $7 billion and made him as a director.